Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another FIFA 22 video, where today we're going to be doing a video on the 4-3-2-1, and we actually have not covered this formation this year to my knowledge. I don't think we've done a single video on the 4-3-2-1, which is quite bizarre considering we are obviously primarily a formation tactic type channel. We haven't actually covered this formation. I know some people have been asking for it, so I thought today we'll do it. Now, from my experience, the 4-3-2-1, it used to be a couple years back, sort of FIFA 17, FIFA 18. It was my go-to formation, but I haven't really been enjoying it that much in the last couple of years. I've kind of really gone away from it. I think maybe because my playstyle has changed quite a lot, so it doesn't really suit. This is a formation that's very good for people who like to play lots of through balls. You know, if you like to use the long ball tactic, this formation is brilliant for you. If you like to spam through balls, this is a great formation. Obviously, it's kind of got three strikers, so it's really prone to using people who like to use those through balls. So that's not really my play style, maybe why I've gone away from it. So if you are someone that likes playing that way, you'll really like this formation. One problem that this formation does have is the balance. Obviously, it has a flat midfield, which means it can be difficult to obviously link the midfield to the strikers, but also it can be difficult for the midfield to get back in position to help the defense out. So the midfield has always been a bit of an issue with this formation. Now, moving across to the tactics, these are the tactics that I settled on and that I think I had the most success with. Like I said, the 4-3-2-1 in general isn't my personal favorite formation, but when I was using it, these were the tactics that I found to be the most effective. So balanced on the defensive style. This is not a formation you can press in. It's just too narrow. It's too tight. There's too much space out on the wings for people to just play round the press. So it just doesn't work in this formation. In terms of width, gone for around about 50. Just want to keep that very, very standard pretty much for all our formations. Depth, I've gone to around about 60. Now, this is one that is the most tricky, because sometimes when I went with a slightly lower depth on around about 50, I found it was quite tricky to move up the pitch. But then when I went really high, I went to around about 70s, try and utilize the through balls a bit more, and the problems in midfield just became too much of an issue. So I settled on around about 60, which is a little bit lower than what I'm used to playing. But it just felt it was the best that I could find with this formation. You know, I think you have to be careful because you don't obviously have that DM to kind of protect the back four. You can't afford to go too high, but you also need to make sure you are on the front foot and using those through balls through to the strikers. Now, in terms of the build-up play, we did go with long ball. Now, we didn't go with fast build-up, mainly because we don't have a cam / a centre forward, so we don't have anyone to link up. So from the midfield, it was always it was always a through ball. It was always a long through ball. So, you know, I felt we may as well use the long ball tactic if we're having to smash a through ball through anyway, rather than the fast build-up. We just didn't have that player to connect the midfield and the attack. So long ball works extremely well in this formation, especially if you've got some pacey players up front, which obviously at Team of the Year, everyone should now have some much better players. In terms of chance creation as well, I went for direct passing. Now, this is to get the midfield more forwards, but this did have a big noticeable effect on the balance in the midfield. Even like the most central midfielder, which was Kante, I think, in my team, he still got forward, which did leave space and made it quite difficult to defend. So that is something to note, that if you obviously want to be a bit more aggressive, playing on direct passing will leave quite a lot of space and make it quite difficult to defend. If you don't like that, just change the chance creation to balanced, and it will mean that the midfield will stay in position, and it means that just the front three will make the runs in behind. That might be a little bit better of a balance if you struggle with defending. In terms of the offensive width, I went for around about 65, just mainly to get those strikers a little bit wider. One problem that I did have when I was playing is the front three was very much on top of each other. And I don't mind that too much because we do actually play with them on stay central, because I do want them to play as narrow strikers. But sometimes they were a little bit too close together. So I just wanted to make sure there was a little bit more space. We didn't go crazy on the width, just on around about 65, and it was the sweet spot, and it ended up doing exactly what I wanted to. So the through balls had space to go through, like a centre back, in between the gap between a centre back and a fullback. When I was playing on around about 50 to begin with, there wasn't that space in between because the front three were too close together. So you need that just to open up the spaces. Players in the box on 6, corners on 1, going short a lot for my corners now, and then free kicks on 1 as well. And straight up, we'll go with the front three. And as you can see, all three of them we've got on getting behind, of course. I really need to upgrade my team, man. I've got so many coins. I've got like 10 million coins. I just haven't got around spending. I've just been busy doing some other things outside of FIFA. So I really do need to improve my team. But these front three all want to be on get in behind. And I've got them all on stay central. And that might contradict what we've just said with the offensive width. But I do want these guys to play narrow. It's just that to begin with, they were too narrow. So I was always going to play with the support runs on stay central, because these three are your main goal scorers. These three will score 90% of your goals. So you do need to, if you had these guys on balance width, you'd find that these guys would be not involved, and all of the goal scoring responsibility would then fall on your striker and literally no one else. So these guys I kept on stay central. The goals were shared around quite well. It's just that moving that offensive width just allowed for the space to be created when these guys were a little bit wider, but they still scored plenty of goals. In terms of the outside midfielders, we've got Vieira and Cantona. Both these guys we've got on balanced attack, and we've got them on balanced crossing runs. Basically everything on balance. We've just got the defensive position move to cover centre. These guys are properly box-to-box midfielders. They do need to get forwards and assist, like I said, because we don't have a cam to link to the front three. These two mids do need to go forward. Now, Vieira obviously isn't ideal for doing that, but Cantona was perfect. Someone like that, a good attacking midfielder, just to allow this guy, these two midfielders to get forward and support that front three. Not necessarily to score goals, but just more to be able to carry the ball forwards, and just so that you had somebody to play a reasonable sort of 10-15 yard through ball, rather than having to smash a 30-yard through ball over the top or something. So just allowed for that midfield and just a bit more balance. In terms of Kante, we actually played with him on drop between defenders, and this was very, very effective. More because if you're someone that struggles with defending, what will happen is Kante will drop in between the back four, but when you lose possession, you can then drag him out, and you're not dragging out one of your centre-backs. If you're someone who's prone to dragging out centre-backs, the drop between defenders works really, really well, because then you're dragging Kante out of the back, and you're allowing the back four to still stay in position, as opposed to Kante maybe being just on stay back while attacking. Because you don't have that DM, you're now going to be pulling a PK or a Delict, for example, out of position. So if you're someone who's prone to pulling defenders out of position, I recommend doing this, and it works a treat. It's such an effective tactic, and it's definitely a game changer. If you don't use it, it's absolutely something you should use. And in terms of the whole defense, I decided to have them all on stay back while attacking, just because the midfield can be quite open. So I don't want to run the risk of having the fullbacks on balance, because when having them on balance, it just leaves far too much space, because the midfield is kind of a little bit all over the place. And one of the reasons why I don't like this formation, and then Van der Sar obviously on comes crosses and sweeper keeper. So that is it for the 4-3-2-1. In my opinion, not one of my personal favorite formations. These tactics were the best that I could find, but in general, it was more the formation that I wasn't a huge fan of. It just doesn't really suit the way that I personally like to play. But if you're someone that likes to play lots of through balls, if you like to play sort of lots over the top through balls, spamming balls up the wing, this is a perfect formation for you, and these tactics will work very, very well for you. When I did play that way, it was super, super effective. But obviously, my natural habits and trying to play the way that I normally play, it didn't allow me to play obviously the way that I normally play. But if you spam through balls a lot, this will be super, super effective if that is your play style. But that is it for today's video, guys. So make sure you drop a thumbs up and subscribe as well if you are new to the channel. But that is all for today, guys. Have an awesome day. I'm out.